have increased their capability by 15%, only to accommodate, obviously, for the increasing threat that we face here in the United Kingdom. But even they, by their own admission, would say that that additional 15% is going to take some years to become tactically beneficial once they've been through screening, vetting and training. Well, the same with firearms officers in the Metropolitan Police and other constabularies. You know, the numbers have been cut back by, and I think you've already given the figures, some 1,500 approximately in the last 7 years. These officers that are being brought on board, unfortunately, they're being cut elsewhere in terms of the locations for them to be trained in or to be housed. And again, in terms of those officers, that's specialist training that needs to be provided, which will take some time to implement.
Yeah. Will, just a thought on that most difficult of decisions that serving officers and commanders have to take when they suspect that a plot may be in the offing. Do they intervene? Do they disrupt before the full evidential evidence has been collected that could perhaps secure a conviction?
Well, yeah, it's a really very, very, very good point, that. And again, this is a constant balancing act by the authorities as to when they disrupt or they intercept a plot in the making. And it's when they feel that they've been sufficiently positioned to have concrete evidence that then can be prosecuted against. And this is why I think, unfortunately, in the wake of this tragic incident, I would like to hope that all political parties, to which I have no single alliance, put to one side the rhetoric and work together productively at looking at legislation and how they can better equip within the judicial processes the authorities, that they don't leave it to the last minute, but can also act in a more proactive session and capacity.
Will Geddes, appreciate your time. Thanks very much indeed. Here at the southern end of London Bridge, just really in the shadow of the mighty Shard building. Office workers continue to gather here. There remains a very significant police presence. Half of London Bridge is closed. Elsewhere in central London, Westminster Bridge today, the police, the construction workers bringing in new barriers that can stop vehicles swerving from the road onto the pavement. More coverage coming up here from Sky. This is Sky News at 2 o'clock. I'm Colin Brazier, live from London Bridge, where a police cordon is still in place after Saturday's deadly terror attack. Jeremy Corbyn calls on Theresa May to quit over police cuts in the wake of the atrocity which saw 7 people killed. But Theresa May denies policing on the cheap as fighting terror becomes the main focus of the election campaign.
We've given increased powers to the police to be able to deal with terrorists, powers which Jeremy Corbyn has boasted he has always opposed.
Police say they now know the identity of the 3 assailants as they investigate a possible island connection.
What is he shooting? I'm trying to keep myself safe.
New footage of the Borough Market attack as injured survivors describe their ordeal.
All of a sudden, the guy comes up with a knife, and I'm like this, ducks it. I mean, that's me there, and I just like push him off. Blood's going everywhere. I walk into a pub, and I'm like, "Someone help me! I've just been stabbed."
More raids in East London. 11 people remain in custody. And tributes to Canadian Christine Archibald, the first victim of the terror attack to be named. Hello and good afternoon from London Bridge, the scene of Saturday night's terror attack in London, in which 7 people died and 48 were injured. With only 3 days to go to the election, Jeremy Corbyn has called on Theresa May to resign as Prime Minister for presiding over cuts in police numbers when Home Secretary. Mrs May defended her record this morning, saying counter-terrorism policing budgets have been protected under her watch.
Have been protecting counter-terrorism policing. We've provided funding for an uplift in armed policing. We have, from 2015, we're protecting police budgets. As I said, the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn's front bench, said that police budgets could be cut by up to 10%. We said, no, we're going to protect those budgets. But it's also about the powers that you give to the police. And I have been responsible through a number of pieces of legislation I've introduced to give extra powers to the police to deal with terrorism. Jeremy Corbyn's boasted that he's opposed every single piece of anti-terror legislation since he came into Parliament.
Let's turn to Tamara Cohen, our political correspondent, who is up in concert in County Durham. Tamara, welcome to you. There will be those people who will say it's unseemly, opportunistically unseemly, to be calling for the Prime Minister to resign at a time like this. Others will counter that and say, if you can't talk about how you deal with terror during a general election, when can you talk about it?
And it seems that Jeremy Corbyn has taken that very approach, Colin. Just to explain where we are, we're in County Durham. Jeremy Corbyn is just behind me, meeting a group of students here to talk about house building, but it's his comments about terror which has very much dominated the agenda. As we saw campaigning begin again last night, just hours after the atrocity in London, Jeremy Corbyn did take the Prime Minister to task in a way we perhaps didn't expect him to, saying that you can't protect the public on the cheap, and that these 20,000 cuts to police numbers since 2010, he said, were wrong. Now, today, he's been asked, would he support those calls from some who say the Prime Minister should resign because of her record on policing? And he said, I think I would. Now, these calls have come from across the political spectrum, including from the Prime Minister David Cameron's former advisor, Steve Hilton, who said that Theresa May should be resigning. It's not clear exactly how that would work with only a few days to go before the election. But Jeremy Corbyn said he thinks he would support those calls for her to resign. Just after that, actually, his spokesperson gave us a quote saying that he thought that what he meant was that he believes the public will judge Theresa May on her record. We have an election on Thursday where there is an opportunity to vote for a Labour government, so perhaps he's going to row back slightly from that comment that she should resign straight away, but certainly a pretty punchy thing to say in a campaign, and shows that he thinks that this issue of police numbers regarding terrorism is one where he can give the Prime Minister a real run for her money when, you know, she is the one who's supposed to be pretty strong on the issue of security. And this is after we saw Jeremy Corbyn last night apparently having a change of heart about the shoot to kill policy the police have, having expressed some reservations about it a year and a half ago. He now says the police should, he would, if he was Prime Minister, authorise the police to use any force necessary, as they did in London Bridge and as they did in Westminster a few months ago. So whether people see it as unseemly or not, terrorism very much becoming a political issue in this campaign, both from the Conservatives and Labour.
Tamara, thanks very much indeed. Tamara Cohen there with Jeremy Corbyn in concert in County Durham. Move about 80 or so miles northwards through the borders up to Edinburgh. That's where we expect to see Theresa May. She's already talked today, she's already faced questions, election-related questions, but many questions inevitably too about the terror attack here on Saturday. The scene in Edinburgh, she'll be speaking there. We'll bring it to you live when it happens. Well, here in London, there is still a heavy police presence this afternoon, people returning to work, going about their business following Saturday night's terror attack. Police say they know the identities of all three men responsible for what took place here at London Bridge at the weekend. There were more raids in East London in the early hours of this morning. A number of people were detained, and new security measures are in place on London's bridges. The national terror threat remains at severe, meaning an attack is highly likely. Well, our senior correspondent, David Bowden, has the latest.
I'm in direct from a terroristic attack in the middle of London. Police are shooting. I'm trying to keep myself safe.
Italian photojournalist Gabriele Schiotto was in Borough Market on Saturday night as armed police closed in on the terrorists. He recorded everything he saw.
I just saw the two guys getting shot, and the helicopters are coming over, police is coming over.
Even when officers demanded he clear the streets, he kept rolling.
Yeah, here's a policeman coming towards me. Disappear now! Yeah. Gone! All right.
Before he was moved on, Gabriele captured the tension and gunfire as the security forces brought down the attackers.
You see the people running? It's a terroristic attack apparently in the middle of London. Here's people running. So it's all going on right now. People running, I don't know out of where, because I was on the scene, like where the attack was happening, and I'm just like in the corner. Sir, it's okay. It's okay.
Run!
Yeah, I won't run. It would just creep me out. I've been here since the beginning. Don't worry. Don't you worry. I'm alright. I'm a photojournalist. It's okay.
Others were on the streets too, the videoing not as professional but equally chilling. These pictures taken by Brian Salcedo.
It was like a trail of about, I would say, 6 to 7 bodies. And then one of the police officers was attending 2 bodies at the same time, because there was more bodies than police officers at that time. And one of the officers was literally, like, his face was just bleeding. He looked like he'd been attacked. He had his baton now, is that what you call it? And he was leaning against the wall, like trying to stay up, and the other police officer was holding him up.
Oliver Dowling and Marie Bonneville, a couple from New Zealand, are among the injured. Australian Candice Hedge stabbed in the throat, and journalist Jeff Ho wounded as he tried to protect another victim.
Went with Belushi's, watched Champions League final. Final's over, 4-1 Madrid. Happy days. Walked outside, walked across the road, a fight breaks out. I'm like, what's going on here? Start to walk towards it. All of a sudden, the guy comes up with a knife, and I'm like this, ducks it, stabs me there, and I just like push him off. Blood's going everywhere. I walk into a pub, and I'm like, someone help me! I've just been stabbed.
But Canadian Christine Archibald was one of those who did not survive. She'd moved to Europe to be with her fiancé. Images too of the murderers on foot, having crashed their van and moving calmly through Borough Market to kill again.
I open the door and I see already in the floor 3 people in the floor, like almost die. a lot of blood and everything, and the people running away, shouting crazy. I actually listen as well some shot fire.
The perpetrators of this murderous attack are all dead, but the police investigation into their backgrounds and associates goes on. More raids today and more arrests. But Britain's top police officer says routinely arming bobbies on the beat is not the way forward.
I do not believe that arming every one of our officers is a sensible or practical option. And in fact, I think having these highly mobile, highly equipped, highly trained